Here now is the aforementioned Dr. Byron Bridle. Dr. Bridle, we're going to get to your response to some of the criticism in a minute, but in layman's terms, explain briefly what you came across in your research.
Hi, Laura. Yes, thanks for having me. So this was actually a study. The data that I cited is actually Pfizer's own data. They had submitted it to the Japanese government. And what's interesting is, unlike the FDA in the United States and Health Canada, the regulatory agency in my country, the Japanese government requires additional data that our health agencies do not require. And included in their data package was results of a biodistribution study. So this is a study that looks at where the vaccine goes in the body. Now, with traditional vaccine technologies, what we know is that when the vaccine is injected, in this case into the shoulder muscle, normally the vaccine would stay in the shoulder muscle. But in this case, this study indicated that as little as 25% of the dose remains in the shoulder muscle. The rest of the dose seems to distribute systemically throughout the body, seeding all kinds of tissues. And so there's a couple of concerns. There was a peer-reviewed study that demonstrated that the spike protein that the vaccine causes our bodies to manufacture gets distributed throughout the bloodstream. But probably of even greater concern for me is this evidence that the vaccine itself, which carries the little blueprint for the spike protein from SARS coronavirus, that goes throughout our body and seeds all kinds of tissues, including at quite high concentrations, the ovaries. So, for example, in the ovaries, one of the things that I noted is that after 48 hours, if you look at the amount of the vaccine left in the shoulder, we actually end up, females end up with about 7% of that dose in the ovaries, which is of concern. And of course, what happens is if the vaccine is seeding a tissue like the ovaries, this is providing the genetic blueprint to the cells in the ovaries, meaning that those cells will now start manufacturing the spike protein. And we're also starting to learn that the spike protein itself can be toxic to the body. And as we generate antibodies against the spike protein, if we have cells, for example, in the ovaries that are now starting to express the spike protein on their surface, our own antibodies are going to be attacking our own cells.
Okay, I want to ask, so people understand this. You've been fact-checked out the wazoo, okay, for what you've read and said. Now, and they wrote in the AP, experts say they found nothing of concern from the same study. One expert claimed that the spike became undetectable by 14 days after the first dose of the vaccine. After the second, they couldn't detect the spike protein in the blood of any of the participants because the participants had all generated anti-spike antibodies. They say you're cherry-picking data. Doctor, your response quickly.
Yeah, so first of all, again, what they are actually highlighting is a secondary concern of mine.